Erving Goffman's The Self and Social Change is not a distinct work, but rather a concept explored through his broader contributions to sociology, particularly in his groundbreaking work on self-presentation and social interaction. Although Goffman did not write a singular book specifically titled The Self and Social Change, his theoretical framework in The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, 1959, along with other writings like Stigma, Notes on the Management of Spoiled Identity, 1963, and Asylums, Essays on the Social Situation of Mental Patients and Other Inmates, 1961, touches extensively on themes that explore how the self operates in the context of social change. For the sake of clarity, this analysis integrates insights from these works to unpack the relationship between the self and the changing social structures. Goffman's concept of the self. At the core of Goffman's work is his notion of the self as a socially constructed entity, constantly shaped by interaction and performance in everyday life. According to Goffman, the self is not a fixed or inherent aspect of a person, but rather something that is developed, maintained, and modified through social interaction. He uses the concept of the presentation of self to illustrate how individuals manage the impressions they make on others in a variety of settings. This is most famously articulated in The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, where Goffman suggests that social interaction can be likened to a theatrical performance, where people play various roles depending on the social context they find themselves in. Goffman posits that individuals engage in impression management as they attempt to project a particular image of themselves to others. This presentation is influenced by the roles one occupies, the audience one is interacting with, and the norms of the situation. The self, then, is a fluid, performative identity shaped by the expectations and evaluations of others, and it is through these social processes that people navigate their social environments. The self in the context of social change. Goffman's work provides a valuable lens for understanding how the self is implicated in processes of social change. Social change often entails shifts in the expectations, roles, and norms of a society, and these shifts have profound effects on the ways in which individuals manage their self-presentation. One of the key elements of Goffman's theory is the idea that the self is not isolated, but is rather constructed and maintained through interaction with others. As social structures evolve, so too do the roles and behaviors expected of individuals, and these changes compel people to adjust their self-presentations accordingly. In times of social change, people often find themselves confronted with new social norms or new roles that challenge or redefine their self-concept. For example, Goffman's analysis of total institutions in asylums shows how institutions like mental hospitals, prisons, or military settings impose strict roles that force individuals to modify their behavior and self-perception. When societal structures are disrupted, such as during periods of political upheaval, industrialization, or cultural shifts, the individual's sense of self may be strained as they try to reconcile new expectations with existing self-concepts. Moreover, Goffman's concept of role distance is particularly relevant when examining how people negotiate their identities during times of social change. Role distance refers to the degree to which individuals distance themselves from the roles they are expected to perform in social settings. In the context of social change, individuals may be asked to perform roles that no longer align with their values or self-perceptions. For example, during periods of political revolutions, individuals may find themselves being asked to conform to new political ideologies that conflict with their previous beliefs. This creates tension between their social roles and personal identities, often resulting in a redefinition of the self as individuals adapt to the changing social order. Here is the text copied as requested. Social change and the stigmatization of the self. One of Goffman's most important contributions to understanding the self in the context of social change is his analysis of stigma. In Stigma, Notes on the Management of Spoiled Identity, Goffman explores how certain individuals or groups come to be marked as deviant or undesirable by society. He identifies various forms of stigma, including physical or mental disabilities, racial or ethnic characteristics, and behaviors that deviate from societal norms. As societies change, the types of stigmas attached to certain identities can shift. What may have once been considered deviant or stigmatized in one social context may become normalized or even valorized in another. For example, during periods of social change, movements for civil rights or gender equality can lead to a reevaluation of stigmatized identities. Goffman's work on stigma provides a nuanced understanding of how the self is marked by societal judgments and how individuals with stigmatized identities must navigate these judgments, often engaging in impression management strategies to avoid the social consequences of being stigmatized. At the same time, Goffman suggests that stigmatization can also be a source of social solidarity, as individuals with shared stigmas may come together in response to their marginalization. This communal aspect of stigma becomes particularly significant in the context of social movements or political change, where collective identities are formed around shared experiences of being stigmatized. The ways in which stigmatized individuals form new self-concepts in these contexts exemplify the fluidity of the self in response to social change. The changing roles of social institutions. In Asylums, Goffman examines how total institutions, such as mental hospitals or prisons, impose rigid roles and control over the individuals within them. These institutions serve as microcosms for understanding the effects of broader societal changes on personal identity. Goffman argues that individuals in these settings are stripped of their personal identities and are required to conform to institutional norms. This process of institutionalization, Goffman contends, has profound implications for how individuals perceive themselves and how their identities are shaped by external forces. When society undergoes significant change, the roles and functions of social institutions can also shift, forcing individuals to renegotiate their self-concept within these new institutional structures. For instance, the rise of mass media and technology in the 20th century dramatically changed how people interacted with the world and with each other. People began to interact with increasingly larger, often anonymous audiences, which meant that the traditional face-to-face interactions that shaped self-presentation were replaced by more mediated forms of social engagement. This shift required individuals to adapt their self-concept to fit new social contexts, and Goffman's theories on impression management and performance provide insight into how this adaptation took place. The influence of technology and modern media on the self. In contemporary society, technological advancements have brought about a new form of social change that has profound implications for the self. The rise of social media, for example, has created new spaces for individuals to perform their identities, often with carefully curated online personas. The process of self-presentation, as described by Goffman, is now mediated through digital platforms, where individuals construct and manage their identities for virtual audiences. This new form of social interaction has redefined the boundaries between private and public self-presentation, with significant consequences for how the self is understood and enacted in social contexts. Social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter require individuals to constantly manage their impressions, crafting an idealized version of themselves for public consumption. Goffman's work on self-presentation is highly relevant in this context, as the performance of the self online often involves multiple layers of impression management. These digital platforms have become spaces for individuals to negotiate their identities, respond to social changes, and manage the risks of social stigma or rejection. The digital age has ushered in a new phase of social change, where the self is increasingly shaped by the virtual environment and the audience it caters to. In summary, Goffman's theories on the self and social change offer profound insights into how individuals navigate shifting social structures and roles. His work highlights the importance of social interaction in shaping the self and underscores the ways in which social change challenges and reshapes personal identities. Whether in the context of changing political ideologies, stigmatization, or technological advancements, Goffman's theories continue to provide valuable frameworks for understanding how the self is constructed, managed, and modified in response to the dynamic forces of social change. Through his analysis, Goffman reveals that the self is not a static entity, but a fluid, evolving construct shaped by the ongoing performance of social roles within a changing society.